Hello and welcome to Career Conversations. We have another great interview for you audience today, and we'd like to welcome everyone in the audience. I want to remind folks that the Q&A feature and the chat feature is enabled, and we will be taking questions for our guest in the next 15 to 20 minutes. As you listen to our interview, please write questions in the chat and we will field them. Lori Scharf, good afternoon. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you. And do we have the Q&A box as well this evening?
I'm checking.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay, thank you. And welcome to everybody. We have Nefertiti Matos Olivares with us this evening, and she is a workflow manager for quality assurance. Quality and inclusion at Descriptive Video Works, and also is a freelance voiceover artist. And thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here. Thanks.
I know as a person who is blind that I enjoy using audio description. And can you tell us a little, Nefertiti, about audio description and the different types of settings that you may have used it in prior to working in the field?
Sure. Well, audio description is a narration track that is heard most often during gaps in naturally occurring dialogue in film, TV, live performance, etc. And I am a blind person who did not grow up with audio description, actually. It wasn't till my 20s that I became aware of it. But even then, I didn't really pay attention past it being something that facilitated a fuller understanding of whatever content I was watching at the time. Later, clearly, it would become a lot more important to me. But that was sort of my exposure to audio description starting off. I didn't know about it, and then when I did, it was purely for entertainment.
What are some areas that audio description may be used besides entertainment?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, TV programs, films, live performance, like on Broadway. I live in New York City, so that's very big here. But more and more, we're also hearing about museum exhibits getting described, image description, a lot of alt text talk on the internet in particular. Sports events are getting some traction for having live audio description. So I'm in camp for anybody on social media, hashtag describe everything. So if it were up to me and people like me, audio description would be on anything and everything.
Before you mentioned that, you kind of knew about audio description, what was your epiphany that maybe helped you make a change in understanding the importance of audio description or just changed your view?
Sure. Well, if we're speaking in terms of how this became a career for me, a second career, in fact, I guess I'll say that I was in the blindness field already as an assistive technology instructor. And around year 4 of what turned out to be a 7-year stint, I began to feel the effects of burnout, like really, really burnt out on that field. So yeah, by year 7 and in full pandemic, I was definitely ready for something different. I'd say that through lots of talking with my then partner and entering into deep conversation with myself as well, I decided that it was time for something different, to make a really big move in my life. Singing, dancing, acting, indeed anything and everything related to performance has always been a very strong calling for me. And I was watching a lot of content, a lot of stuff, movies, TV shows, while cooped up, as were we all, right? And I started really sort of zeroing in on audio description as access artistry. Importantly, too, I began picking up on and noticing areas where it really needed to be improved upon. So I would say, thanks to my natural born interests, plus observation and social media, specifically an app called Clubhouse, I came across Thomas Reid of Read
I
My
know
Mind
Thomas.
Radio
Mm-hmm.
fame. Yes, that's R-E-I-D, like his last name. And I reached out to him. Luckily, he was open to talking to me about the field and his experience, and would go on to provide me with some truly excellent mentorship. And along the way, he connected me with people who were doing really meaningful inclusion work, like Eric Wickstrom at International Digital Center, who gave me my first really big break in all of this. And then I joined what's now known as the Social Audio Description Collective, and basically hustling. It really comes down to lots of tireless and tiring hustling. That's how I became involved. I wanted to be part of the changes that I thought this field so desperately needed, by way of representation in blindness participation, more talk about race and gender and disability and things of that sort. And so that's how it happened. I'll end by saying that I did, for a few months, work for a small audio description company, but things didn't work out. But that's more than a good thing, as it turned out, because that's what led me to Descriptive Video Works, where I am now. So there you go.
Great. It's interesting because I think, and this may be more for people who are congenitally blind, that they kind of have an epiphany. We don't realize what we're missing sometimes. And I'm almost 50, so I kind of grew up watching Law and Order and always thought I knew what was going on until I got to watch it with audio description. And it was like, that was my big epiphany. Like, how much was I really missing? Um, so
Yeah, I can
I
relate
always,
to that, Lori. For me, it was the Golden Girls. I've been watching
ah,
that show
yes.
off and on since I was 9. Never mind that it's
Yep.
older than I am, but that's
Right.
okay.
Yep.
Um, and I thought I knew everything about that show, and then audio description was finally something that, was embraced, and I realized how much of it I got wrong. And I mean, not like the main crux of episodes, but details that I
Mhm.
thought I knew by rote, right? And I was wrong, or I was off. And it's quite a revelation. Audio description can be, by way of what it is, access to information, right? So I can
Yes.
totally relate to that. Yeah.
And I think that Golden Girls is a really good example because it's still funny because what they're saying is funny, but the visual elements throw in a whole different nuance. Um,
Absolutely.
so I think that's something that people may want to think about when they're watching something with description or attending an event that might have description, how this event would be different with or without description. Okay.
Yeah, for me, it's gotten to a point where I will not entertain anything without description anymore. I'll decide whether the description was good or great or lacking in some way or what have you, but without it, it's too much of a deficit for me anymore. And some people might think that that's spoiled of me, but that's okay. I'll be spoiled. I'll be discerning, and I will not go into that visual, like, image poverty anymore.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it sometimes means that I have to miss out on content that wasn't described, or have to wait for that content to be described at some point. But I think it's worth it if it means maintaining my own autonomy to watch what I want, when I want, in the way I want. So
Okay. And what are some technology? It could be assistive technology or maybe mainstream technology that you may use specifically to the either audio description or voiceover work that you do?
Sure. That's pretty straightforward. I use screen readers. On my PC, I use JAWS for Windows. Mac, I use VoiceOver. My iPhone is also VoiceOver. And I know a few things to get by on like an Android device with TalkBack. So definitely heavy use of screen readers. I am a very proud, fluent Braille reader. And I also use visual interpreter services like Ira or Be My Eyes. And those are the technologies that I use. I do have a refreshable Braille display that I sometimes take with me into studio, whether that be like a professional sound studio or my own at-home studio. And yeah, that's how I do this work.
Great. And can you tell us a little about how you came about into your job at Descriptive Video Works and what kind of work does that specifically entail?
Absolutely. So I told you all that I worked for a little bit of time at a company when I decided to make a move from the New York Public Library, where I was doing assistive technology work. I jumped to a small company, mostly paying attention to and catering to the needs of Spanish language audio description, which is fantastic because the work is there and the need is definitely there. But again, things did not work out, and I found myself unemployed. So scary. But again, that forced me to rev up my involvement. My New York accent came out there. My
I
involvement.
gave it to you.
Lori, it's rubbing off on me. But my involvement with the Social Audio Description Collective, and I started auditioning and landing some really high profile projects. And that made it so that my now boss, Reese Lloyd at Descriptive Video Works, he's our studio head, took notice of me, reached out to me, created a position for me. And after we, made it so that we were both happy with the workflow and the amount of responsibilities and the pay and all of the things, I more than happily accepted. And it's, oh my gosh, an absolute dream job for me. And my responsibilities with Descriptive Video Works, let's see, there's quite a lot, but I'll say onboarding talent and narrator casting and working on our QC workflow, meeting with leadership at networks and streaming services to advocate for more better quality human voiced audio description. Keeping on top of what the community wants, what their ideas are, what their needs are by way of the groups that I help to run on X and on LinkedIn, participating on an advisory council that Descriptive Video Works is fantastic at maintaining with all blind and low vision folks. And also doing my own narration work, whether that's pre-recorded or live. But yeah, I think you get the picture. It's all things all the time AD with Descriptive Video Works.
Great, great. So speaking of live versus recorded description, can you talk a little about some differences in those two areas?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Let's see. There are a few differences, but I'll focus on two for right now. I would say pressure and preparation. The pressure, the level of pressure to get it right is a lot more acutely felt when doing live audio description, because if I mess up, guess what? It's live. There's no opportunity to do another take like you would in a studio setting. Granted, I'm fairly decent at landing my lines the first time, but I am also human and I make mistakes. And when you're live, everybody's privy to them. There's no takebacks. There are no do-overs. And there's a lot that goes into preparing for this work. if you know, you want to be serious about it and be taken seriously and be a professional in this space, for me, it's anything from vocal exercises I do before getting started to how I need my scripts to be formatted, keeping my home studio up to snuff by way of equipment, and keeping my audio editing skills sharp too. It's not enough to have a nice voice, y'all. There's a lot more to it. Also, the willingness and energy to travel across the country, albeit for very prestigious gigs, but still, that does not take away all of the annoyances and the silliness that we as independent blind people encounter just about everywhere we go, right? It's a lot. And I would say that it really helps that I'm really passionate about and genuinely love what I do, because it can get hard. There has been resistance, there has been discrimination. There are folks who, you know, love this idea of audio description as a job that helps them, you know, cater to poor blind people. But they're not crazy about actual blind people going beyond being consumers of the art. You know, we
Ah,
can do this work too, y'all. We have
yep.
talent too. We have capabilities too. And there are some people who are very resistant to that idea. And I've encountered a few of them. So, you know, there are some unpleasant trees here too. Just because this is an art form that was thought up by us for us does not necessarily mean that it hasn't been gate kept by others and made difficult for us to enter. So, you know, just some real talk for y'all. There are some difficulties that you face as well, beyond learning all the skills and honing your talent. There are some other things to consider as well, but it is so worth it. At least for me, it has been. I'm the happiest I've
Oh,
ever been in my career.
I just love your enthusiasm and your passion. It's great when we come across people that really do love what they do. And I thankfully have always been in jobs where I love what I do.
Good
Can you
for
speak
you,
a
Lauren.
little bit about how did you prepare as somebody who's blind to whether it be to describe information that that's going to be conveyed, or do you help write the scripts and make them more palatable to people who are blind? Can you talk a little about that? How in a live setting, you like, what do you do to make it accessible to you?
Mm. Well, if are you asking me about challenges that
Well,
I've
it could be
encountered,
a
or
challenge. It could be a challenge.
it
Yep.
could be
If
rewarding too. It sure
it,
has been.
I could see this going many directions. So it's not necessarily challenges. I'm just more curious, how do you prepare as somebody who's blind to convey the information correctly? You talked about in the live settings having to prepare. Like, what would some examples maybe be of that? How would you learn about the clothing that people might be wearing, or I
Mm.
don't even know, like how what might be an example.
Okay, so if we're talking about preparing, you know, for a studio setting, I have my script, whether it's in Braille or on my refreshable Braille display, or using my screen reader as a sort of teleprompter,
Hmm.
and you know, through my computer and the like. You have your microphone and you have your tea, which I'm about to take a sip from. Thank you. Um, and you know, you do the thing, right? Whether it's directed or self-directed. In a live setting, there's a lot more pressure, as I've talked about already. But the way it's worked for me and I'll say my number one um, co-narrator, co-describer, Erin Murawski. Um, the way we've worked together is she as the sighted describer and me as the blind one. She literally writes what she sees, and I'm there asking clarifying questions, sort of sprucing things up a bit, making sure that it makes sense to me as a blind person and for blind people in general, of course. And we're working together in tandem that way. Sometimes if we're pressed for time, Aaron will write the scripts. I will come in and do more of a sort of a live quality control type of responsibility or role, I should say, and we will figure it out that way. But as far as challenges, well, I would say that the Oscar goes to the Oscars. Talk about challenging. Oh my goodness. I'll say that being the first blind person to perform live audio description for the Oscars last year was really something. It was honestly more than a dream come true that I didn't even realize was a dream until the opportunity presented itself. Because the expectation to perform well was off the charts. And yeah, okay, it was mostly my own perfectionist type standards coming to the fore, but also understanding that influential people beyond, my boss and my treasure of a mother listening, there were people, actual people who had the power to say, we're not going to hire you to do this service again next year. We're not going to contract with your company again next year. And sort of that pressure and that weight of responsibility was really challenging for me. But I also knew that doing well could break down walls and open up doors for other blind folk interested in and having, a talent for this work. Like it or not, I'd say we can all, to some degree or another, relate to the whole being an ambassador for all blind people wherever we find ourselves. Yeah? You have experience with that, Lori?
Yeah.
Exactly. So just imagine doing that with however many people watching you live, listening to you live, sure, ready to praise, but also ready to critique. And again, I can't stress enough, the people with the power to decide whether you'll be asked to come back, whether your company will be hired again. It felt very weighty to me. And luckily, I went on to do a good job. I'm doing it again this year, next week. Y'all tune in, the Oscars. And if you're, checking this out at years in advance, who knows where we'll be. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind, I would say, with lots of rewards, because it does feel good to do a good job. It does feel good to represent the community and do that well. It feels fantastic to be in a position to uplift other blind and low vision talent into this space. We need you. So if you're out there and you're interested, we are doing this work. So yeah, does that answer your question, Lori?
Oh yeah.
I rambled on and on. Thank you.
No, you did fine. You did fine.
Great.
So you have the ability to do, as a bilingual speaker, to do description in both English and Spanish. And as you've said, it is so needed within the Spanish speaking community as well. Can you talk a little about maybe any differences that you've come across in describing maybe because of linguistic or cultural differences, something along those lines?
That's a really good question. And
if
I'm
the
not
question really doesn't make sense, you can just tell me that, because I'm asking this as knowing just nothing about Spanish translation and how it would be impacted. I'm just thinking about translation in general.
all right, Lori, it doesn't make sense. No, I'm
I
kidding.
just
I'm kidding.
blushed.
No, I'm sure it looks very appealing on you, Lori. A nice blush. But what I would say to this is, yes, as I've said, audio description in Spanish, if we feel that it is scarce in English, oh my goodness, talk about a desert and a deficit in Espanol. It's for anybody out there who speaks Spanish, necesitamos más audiodescripción en español. And I am someone who really pushes for that and jumps at any chance where I can play a part in making that happen. Anything from writing it, translating it, and voicing it. I'm getting more work doing Spanish language audio descriptions. So I'm really happy to be able to say that. I mean, it exists, it's out there, but we need a lot more of it. As far as differences, the only thing I can really think of off the top of my head would be the way certain styles, right? In English, most people that I know like detailed description. They like facial expressions. They want information about skin color, race, gender, disability, things like that. You know, myself, I say, if you can see it as a sighted person, I want to know it as a blind person without too much interpretation. Thank you. But
Oh, I hate that.
yes, and we could talk about that next if you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, in Spanish, I've noticed, particularly in the mother tongue, Español de España, right? So Spanish, actual Spaniard Spanish, not necessarily where my people are from, you know, the islanders, the Caribbean folks, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Colombianos, Mexicans, things like that. They like a very sort of short, clipped, to the point kind of description. So I would say, in my experience, others, you know, who you might question at some other point might have more to add, but in my experience, it really comes down to more of a style of, we, you know, want it short and to the point, and that's what I can flag right off the bat, difference wise. As far as translation is concerned, you know, I flow a lot better in Spanish for whatever reason. Maybe because it's my first language. I don't know. But, you know, I'm pretty decent in English, I would think, at this point. And yet I find that when I'm narrating in Spanish, you know, I'll maybe practice a line or a script once and be ready to go. Whereas in English, I might have to do a take or two to get it just right. And I'm not quite sure what I can attribute that to. It'd be interesting to speak to other bilingual voice artists about this at some point. So if you're out there, you know, get in touch with me afterward and let me know. But yes, that's how I can answer your question as far as differences and cultural differences and linguistics differences or linguistic differences.
Great.
Yeah.
So Richard, Alaya, let's see if either of you have questions, and then we can also turn it over to our question and answers box.
Nefertiti, you had mentioned that, and we are taking questions by chat or the Q&A. We won't be taking questions off the mic, so please put in your questions if you can. Nefertiti, you talked about the Oscars and the experience you had last year, and you're going to have a similar experience this year, I believe.
It'll be different in some big ways, but I think fundamentally it'll be similar to last year. Certainly the excitement, the pressure, the privacy, all of that, I'm sure will be the same this year.
What will you do differently now, knowing what's expected of you and how hectic and crazy and chaotic the whole experience is? How are you planning?
I'm going to try my best to sleep more because my gosh, when we are there, we are on the grounds 12 to 14 hours at a time.
Oh.
The changes that they make so very last minute that have us scrambling to rewrite certain things for our script or to prepare ourselves to look up terms like, what kind of dress is that fabric, you know, or what kind of fabric is that dress made out of, or what have you, you know, is very nerve-wracking and very sort of down to the literal second. So I'm going to try and get some more sleep. I'm going to be patient, because to leave the Oscars last year, to go from the Dolby Theater back to my hotel took 3 hours, where before it was about a 35-minute drive. So I'm arming myself with patience, with some fortitude for the last minute changes, and yeah, just going with the flow, and just, hey, I'm here, and that showing up in and of itself is huge. Let's get this done, and let's do our best work. And I'm sure that Aaron, my co-narrator, is preparing in much the same vein.
One of the questions I came in earlier is from the Q&A, and would you be able to explain the Self-Paced Academy that you participated in?
Ah, okay. So that would be a program called Such a Voice. Such a Voice. And I decided to look them up after someone who I'm friends with on Facebook talked about what a great experience she had. And yeah, it is a voiceover. I call it an academy. They might call themselves a program, or whatever terminology they use. And it's completely online. You get a voice coach, and you go through modules where you learn things, you do exercises, you take little quizzes, etc. And at the end, depending on which track you enroll for, or enroll into, you'll come out of there with 1, 2, 3 different demos, be they commercial or narration, or in a different language, or particular to animation. It really depends on where your interests lie and what track you'd like to do, and the time it takes you to get there. I've spoken to people who have not yet finished their their studies there. I'm one of them. I've gotten so busy that the truth is it has fallen by the wayside. And every time I think about it, thank you, person who asked this question, because you're making me think about it. I'm like, I gotta get back to this. I paid a lot of money to do this. I gotta make it part of my life and get those demos, and and then there are people who finished it in a matter of like 6 to 9 months. So it's up to you what your financial standing is, how much time you can invest in it, the energy you can put into it. But like with anything, you'll get out of it what you put in. And yeah, so check it out if you'd like. Again, it's called Such a Voice. I'm sure there are other programs like it. And I'm also sure that you can do this work without it. That is what I will say. Please don't feel that you need to necessarily put yourself through like a major expenditure in voice acting and things like that. Is it important to be trained and to know what's out there, and to network and to meet people and all that? Absolutely. Absolutely. That could be said for any job, any career. But it doesn't necessarily have to be Such a Voice or a program like it. I want people to know that they have the freedom. You don't necessarily have to do that.
Thank you, Nefertiti. Another question from the Q&A box is, how do we get involved in Spanish audio description? And the participant asks they would love to get your contact information. So maybe your LinkedIn or some public domain out there?
Absolutely. Anybody, everybody can look me up on LinkedIn. I'm Nefertiti Matos Olivares. That's Nefertiti space Matos space Olivares. And it would be great to connect with you professionally. As far as Spanish language audio description, did this person say they're interested in performing Spanish language audio description?
How do we get, they asked,
it,
how do we get involved? So I think maybe it could be learning it, using it, doing it. If you want to write in the question and give clarification, but that's how I'm receiving it here.
Well, for finding it, gosh, there are streaming services that offer alternative languages, right? So let's say Netflix, that's a huge one that I think most everyone is aware of. They're very good about having description in all, excuse me, in all sorts of languages, Spanish definitely being one of them. So that's one way to consume Spanish language content, whether it was made natively in Spanish or you have sort of the dubbed content into Spanish. As far as becoming involved by way of performing audio
That's a
description,
they wrote in and clarified. Yes, that's what they want to know.
that really depends. If you get a job with a company that does Spanish language audio description, the company I work for, Descriptive Video Works, wow, we are producing audio description in over 20 languages at this point.
Wow.
Wow.
So yeah, it's very impressive. And a testament, to the work and our dedication and the
And the need.
importance and the need, absolutely, of audio description. More and more companies and people in positions of power are realizing that this is not just a service and the right thing to do, but also will get them dollar, right? Let's be real. We are a consumer base as blind and low vision people, and even other people while exercising or driving or whatever it is, you turn on audio description, guess what? That can turn into a subscriber. That means money for them. So they're realizing that there's something to this, and we who are in it already, we already know it's an art form, it's a human right. And so to get involved, I would say your best bet is to connect with companies already doing the work of Spanish language audio description. I would say if you want to write it, you can practice on your own. Describe is an excellent resource for blind and low vision people, not just to submit content that they want described, but also for aspiring describers to hone their craft a little bit and, give back to the community by describing something that, has been requested. So that's a great way to practice. And yeah, that's just a couple offhand ways to get involved with description in other languages, not just Spanish.
From the Q&A, are you a sports fan and have, hold on a second, let me see. I'm curious if any sports leagues have embraced audio description.
Yes. Sports fan, me, not so much. I became interested in the Super Bowl this year because Google commissioned to do a commercial, some of you might know, all about their feature called Guided Frame on their Google Pixel phones. And they employed a blind or low vision film director to make this commercial, and they hired a blind actor, and they had Mr. Stevie Wonder, arguably the most well-known blind person on the planet, doing the voiceover. And I was fortunate enough to be chosen by Google to be the blind audio description narrator for the commercial. And so I became interested, in quotes, I'm doing air quotes with my fingers, in the Super Bowl because of this really momentous opportunity for me. But in general, no, I'm not really a sports fan. That said, hashtag describe everything, right? Sports definitely should be and can be described. And they're doing a lot of really good work in this space in Europe. There's, and you know what? I wish I would have come a little more prepared with this. But I'll tell you this, if you are on LinkedIn, if you are on X, if you are on Facebook and are interested in this, we do have the LinkedIn audio description group, the X audio description community. There is the Facebook audio description discussion group and the NDNA, which is specific for professionals in audio description, but there are some consumers on that group or in that group as well. And this is the sort of thing that we post about, whether it's an article or people asking questions, people complaining, people complimenting. And it's community all about audio description. So I would really encourage folks to join up and to participate. But yes, there is audio description in the sports space. And unfortunately, I don't have names that are coming readily to mind because I'm not a sports fan necessarily. So I apologize for that, but the answer is yes.
Where can one go to be trained in live description for the performing arts? They've reached out to a company, Vocal I UK, and haven't heard back, and they've been trained in film for audio description.
Well, Vocalize, because there's also Vocal I. So Vocalize out of the UK, Vocal I out of Canada, Vancouver specifically, if I'm not mistaken. Both fantastic companies, really doing the work and doing quality work at that. But specific to Vocalize, I'm not aware at all. I'm not privy to their hiring practices at all. I would encourage anybody who has reached out and hasn't heard back, whether it's in audio description or whatever field you're in, reach back out, try again. You know, if you have contacts already in the field, ask them, network with them. You know, hey, I'm interested in doing this work. What recommendations do you have for me? Or do you know of a company hiring right now? Or are there any independent projects that I could maybe, you know, come in on and perform X role in, things like that. So I'm sorry I can't speak to specific companies other than to say that, you know, Vocalize, since that's the one you mentioned, does great work, particularly in the live audio description space and performance space, like you were saying. I'm not sure how they go about hiring people or how they go about training people to transition from or in addition to what experience you might have with pre-recorded description for film or TV shows, etc. I don't know how they do that.
The next question comes from the chat. They want to know, if someone wants to get into the business of voiceover for kids, how would they do that, and how would they network their way into that?
Voiceover for kids. So does that mean animation? What does voiceover for kids mean?
Probably they mean audio description programming for kids.
So to perform audio description for kids,
if you want to
or audio
write in
description
and
on
clarify,
children's
yeah.
programming? Yeah, if you could clarify, that would be great, because I'm a little mixed up and I don't, you know, I don't think I would like misdirect you or anything,
Sure.
but I want to make sure that I answer the question. We can answer another question while we wait for that person to clarify if they want to.
Ola, if you want to check, oh, you know, this person, I'm interested in audio description, but no one's told me how to do it. Another person writes earlier, they came in late and you kind of said this, how did you get into, hang on. How did you find this job and get into the business? Maybe you can give a quick summary.
Yeah, so I was in assistive technology for a while and I got burnt out, jumped to a job that let me go 4 months into the process and found myself unemployed for a little while, but that forced me to increase my involvement with and my vigor for audio description, and through auditions and revving up my involvement in a collective that I helped bring to where it is now, and doing a few high profile jobs I was able to land. My now boss at Descriptive Video Works realized who I was, noticed me, and valued me enough to decide that I was going to be an addition to his team. And he created a position specifically for me, which I went on to accept. And that is how I am doing my dream job in my dream career now.
Where do you hope, I don't see any more questions in the Q&A or chat, but where do you see yourself, or no, where do you see the field of audio description for yourself and other people in this space in 5 years? Where do you hope it'll be in 5 years?
Gosh, accessibility in general. And I do think of audio description as an access, right? Access to information. I
yes.
think it is access artistry. And so when it comes to access and sort of moving that needle, spinning that wheel, it can feel so incrementally slow. But with many more people being aware of audio description, many more people wanting the quality of it to improve, many more people standing up and saying TTS is not the way, TTS being text to speech, you know, AI type, that robot voice kind of thing, saying, no, we don't want that. We want human. We want narration. We're sick and tired of screen readers all day, every day. We don't want that in our entertainment too, right? And more people sort of bonding together and coming together to speak up, to speak out, and saying what they want, entering the field and being about what they want. I'm one of those people. I wasn't hearing about blind people doing this work. I wasn't
Right.
hearing about brown people like me, right? I'm a brown-skinned woman, you know, Latina. I wasn't really hearing that anywhere. Not saying that they don't exist. Of course they do. There are, but brown and blind and disabled and like I wasn't really coming across much of it. And I wanted to be part of making that better, opening doors, breaking down walls, all these things that I've already said. And that's happening for me, and that's happening for others in part to the work that I do, but also people deciding that they want to be the change. They want to be the change they want to see.
A question. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, just to finish up, in 5 years, I would hope that audio description has continued to proliferate and that more and more content of all sorts continues to get described, and that TTS, you know, the robots don't come for our jobs.
It's human driven, right?
Yes, so I'm hopeful that in 5 years, we will be even better and have more improved options in all aspects of description.
Someone wrote in, and I was gonna ask, is AI a concern for the field, and what are you doing to combat that? Not you, but your colleagues, your cohort.
It's a concern because everybody is talking about it. Everybody, you know, there's a lot of fear mongering going around, and there are improvements being made to voices, you know, specific to audio description, since that's what we're talking about here. There are some decent voices that are now on the market. I can't lie. I've been part of testing some of them, much to my chagrin. But, you know, I believe, along with my boss, that unless we have a seat at the table where these decisions are being made, whether to go with human or TTS, guess what? Odds are that these companies, these streaming services, these networks are going to go for the quote unquote cheaper option. And so I rather be at that table so that I can inform them and help guide them better, and hopefully they'll listen to me. And by me, I mean us, right? People in the industry doing this work. And realize that the community is not crazy about TTS. The community has standards, and those standards definitely involve human narration and human participation, from the writing to the quality control to the engineering, all of it. And yeah, but part of that has been dealing with TTS, testing some voices, saying what's good or what's not so good, how it can be improved, what not to do, what not to use, you know. So as far as it being a concern, it is a concern, like it is for everyone, but I don't think we are anywhere near a point where AI is going to put me or others out of a job. We are not there yet, and I am hopeful that we won't ever get there.
Someone asked, and I don't know if this is true, but they're saying, how come the Olympics doesn't have audio description?
Really?
They have.
I'm
That's what I had
surprised at that,
thought.
because Descriptive
Yeah.
Video Works has provided description for the Olympics, and
Would it be the
quite well.
secondary audio channel, or would it?
It
Yeah.
could be Yeah, it could be
Yeah,
they could be in a low network area,
it
Okay.
could be not
meaning their
having context
market
as
that
to
they're
where
in.
you live or the market. Exactly, Lori. Thank you. The market that you're in, given where you live and all of that. But I can tell you 100% the Olympics have had and will have audio description, live audio description.
And it may not be everything, but they definitely do quite a bit of description. When I lived in New York, I was in the #1 market, and I don't even know what market I'm here in Virginia, but it ain't #1, and it's probably not even the top 100. But every so often, I'm shocked that we do get as much description as we do get.
Yeah. And I want to
And
give people a
sometimes it
tip.
depends on your provider, your
That's
cable
very true.
provider,
That's very
or
true.
whatever. So that's also something to be aware of.
Go
I
ahead,
want to let
Nefertiti.
people know a great resource for, that I haven't mentioned that thank you for the question, reminds me, the audio description project from the American Council of the Blind. They have a mailing list and this huge repository online, the ADP repository online,
Yes.
anything and everything having to do with audio description. And their mailing list that you could subscribe to, whether you are a professional or a consumer or just interested, a filmmaker, whatever. You can ask these sorts of questions. Hey, I live such and such a place. What market is this? Or are we going to have description for this? Some people, when it comes to live description, a lot of people actually write to the list saying, hey, I'm in Boston and I'm hearing description on such and such and such. Or, I'm in Los Angeles and I'm getting loud and clear description on such and such and such kind of thing. So that's a really great resource. Again, ADP from the ACB, and they do have a mailing list that you can subscribe to.
I'm going to give out two quick questions. Are most people doing what you do, describing, are they contractors or full-time employees?
I would say that at this point, most people are contractors. It's not every day that you hear somebody working full-time, maybe more part-time, depending. If you have a nice flow of gigs, right? This is very much in the gig economy for most people. We need you for this content, but the truth is that your voice is not going to fit every bit of content, right? Your voice or whatever other characteristics that set you apart may not be what they're looking for X show or X film. And so gig-based means that you might have 2 gigs a month or 3 gigs in a week or no gigs for X amount of time. But if you can get a nice stream going, this could be a very nice part-time sort of job, but rarer, I would say, is somebody in the position of full-time work. And specific to being a narrator full-time, I've never heard of a narrator working audio description full-time. If you're a voice actor, you're doing voice acting on podcasts and, children's shows and things like that, you can absolutely make a full-time job of this. But audio description narration alone as a full-time job, I've never heard anybody say that is possible for them or something that they're doing. Doesn't mean it isn't, but I'm just telling you that my experience is that this is more of a gig-based thing than anything else.
All good things must come to an end. I'm going to give you one more question. We'll do some closing remarks. And thank you everyone for watching Career Conversations. This will be posted in 2 weeks. A question comes in, what classes now do high school students and their college students should take or invest in to be future audio describers? And are there internships out there one can get into?
Very interesting. I don't know of internships, and I would hesitate to dictate to a college student or a high school student what they should do. So this is a tough question. I would say get whatever education interests you, and do what helps you, have fun and keep awake. But yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn, folks, so we can keep the conversation going, because that one is a bit of a multi-pronged question, that last one, because there aren't any specific high school or college courses that I know in audio description. I know that there are classes. I know people who take semesters in certain, classes towards a major or a minor, but I don't know of any program that's 100% audio description. And there are also trainings that people can take on their own outside of college and high school settings too. So yes, hopefully that answers the question a little bit.
This is my first time doing the Q&A and live chat with JAWS by myself. So if I forgot anything, I apologize. You can email us at connectcenter@aph.org. Get those questions answered. We'll get them to Nefertiti. Nefertiti, can you spell out your name for folks wanting to locate you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. One more time. Nefertiti or Nefertiti Matos Olivares. Nefertiti space Matos space Olivares.